Hello everyone, thank you for joining this free online program on graphic designing using Photoshop. So before we get into Photoshop directly, it is always a good idea to have something to know about what is graphic designing. That means what exactly is called as a graphic design, and who are the graphic designers, and what they do actually, in which are the areas they work, and which are the softwares they use, whether the softwares are paid one or whether it is free softwares you can make use, and which are the file types, like commonly we use JPG, PNG, all these file formats. Apart from that, there are many other file formats which we use in graphic designing, so we will have some idea about the various file formats and the various other technical things which you should know in before you get into this graphic design course. So first of all, let me explain what exactly is a graphic designing. Graphic design is the art or profession of visual communication that combines images, words, and ideas to convey information to an audience. That means you may use text, you may use images, you may use photographs or some shapes and some colors, some symbols, and at the end you should convey some information or you should give some information to the audience. So that is called as a graphic design. So according to the American Institute of Graphic Art, graphic design is the art and practice of planning and projecting ideas and experiences with visual and textual content. So finally, so to conclude, graphic design is the craft of creating visual content to communicate messages. So that is the important thing here. So ultimately, you should be able to communicate some message to the audience. The next thing you should know is who are the graphic designers. Graphic designers are the creators and authors of much of the visual world we see every day. They develop diverse advertising, entertainment, news, art, and more across a variety of mediums, including print, video, and digital imagery. The visual aspects of magazines, newspapers, websites, ads, video games, and more are all imagined, designed, and created by graphic designers. So the next thing you should know is what a graphic designer can do or where and all he can work. So there are many areas. It depends upon the graphic designer's skill. He can become an illustrator and he can work under any publication or publishing house, or he can be a game designer where he is designing the gaming characters, designing the backgrounds, all these things. And he can also be a multimedia specialist. A multimedia specialist is one who handles all the graphics, audio, video editing, all these things. So it's combined. It's like a multitasking. He is doing all the graphic designing stuff. He is working with the video editing, all these things, and he can work under computer animation. That means again, just like illustration, he can do some background designs, he can have some infographic animation, and the characters, the various props required for the story, all these things he can design. If he is good in CAD related softwares, computer aided designing softwares, like AutoCAD, all these things, he can also become a good interior designer, or he can work under production design. Basically in a media, it can be a television or a press, like that. And he can also become a 3D animator by learning some 3D software. So these are some of the areas where graphic designer can work. Apart from this, he can also take up some freelancing works, like if you are working from your house, you can take up some photo album making, logo designing, digital painting. All these things you can you can try. So there is a lot of scope for graphic designers nowadays. Even if you're interested in coding, or if you have some knowledge about the programming, you can have some more what you say you can learn user interface designs, okay, UI designs. That also very highly demanded area nowadays. So if you have something coding background as well as something designing background, so it gives you some more advantage to get a better job in any of the company. So this is about the areas where a graphic designer works. The next thing is the software part of a graphic design. That means which are the softwares a graphic designer should learn. There are plenty of softwares available in the market. Some are paid one and some are open source. That means freely available. No need to pay anything. So they when you compare these paid and open source softwares, some open source softwares like GIMP, Krita, or Inkscape, they are really good compared to the other paid softwares. But still, these paid softwares will have more advantage, like they are easy to use, and some technical support is available, and so many other options are there in the paid softwares. So if you are running an office, or you are running you are using the software for some commercial purpose, so you have to be very careful in choosing these softwares, because the open source softwares sometimes may not fulfill all your the requirements. So it is always better to go for a paid one. But if your usage is limited, you can always go for these open source softwares. When it comes to a graphic designing, there are basically two types of designing works we do. One thing is we do lot of editing work with the photographs or pictures we take from the camera or the mobile phones, so editing the images, so image editors. And another one is where we have to do everything from scratch, just like an artist, how he draws everything from scratch. So these are the vector programs, just like I want to create a logo, I want to create some maybe a banner or a book design, all these things. So you have to see what is your requirement exactly. If you are running a publication house, or like you are working with the magazines, all these things, better to go for publishing tools. And if you are a photographer, for example, you are a professional photographer, so you require image editor, so you can go for softwares like Photoshop. Or if you are hobbyist, you take a lot of photographs, but you don't want to spend any money on software, so you can go for GIMP is a open source image editor. So there are plenty of softwares, as I told earlier. So here is a list of paid softwares. So you can see most of the softwares are from Adobe. So Adobe Illustrator is there, Adobe Photoshop is there, Corel Draw. So Adobe Illustrator is basically a vector program where you can do illustrations and some logo designing, or you want to do realistic artwork, so you can go for Illustrator. And for image editing, you can go for Adobe Photoshop. And there is a Corel Draw, especially you are designing a book of 500 pages or 1000 pages, so you can go for Corel Draw. or something related to, you're designing a banner, flex designs. For all such things you can go for Corel Draw. And InDesign, again, similar to Corel Draw, but this is from Adobe. You are designing newspaper, magazine, all these things. You can use it, you can create it using Adobe InDesign. And sorry, there is again Photoshop is mentioned, so it's already explained. So next thing is Adobe After Effects. So one more area of graphic designing is the motion graphics, so that we will discuss later. So Adobe After Effects, basically it requires some more knowledge of video editing and visual effects. So next thing is Autodesk Maya and Cinema 4D. So Autodesk Maya and Cinema 4D, these are the 3D programs. It's not used for actually graphic designing, but you can do some 3D characters there, some interior design, you can do product designs, all these things you can do it with the Autodesk Maya, Cinema 4D, or 3ds Max, Blender, all these things. So the next one is about the open source softwares which are free. You need not pay anything to use all these, even for commercial purpose. They can be downloaded from the respective sites. So first one is GIMP, as I told in the previous no, this one. So GIMP is a open source image editor which has almost all the features of a popular image editor, that is Photoshop. You may download it from the GIMP official site, and similar to Adobe Illustrator, that is Krita. Krita is, again, if you are an artist, you can use Krita for nice sketchings. And Inkscape is again similar to the Corel Draw for the book designs and magazine cover designs, logo designs. All these things you can do with the Inkscape. There are again so many open source softwares are available, but I prefer these three: GIMP, Krita, and Inkscape. Now let me give some introduction on all of these softwares. First, it is Adobe Photoshop. So Adobe Photoshop is a software application for image editing and photo retouching for use on Windows or Mac operating system computers. That means it is available for both Windows as well as for the Mac computers. It is the most widely used software tool for photo editing, image manipulation, and retouching for numerous image and video file formats. The tool within Photoshop make it possible to edit both individual images as well as large batches of photos. That means these individual images and large batch photos. Now you take one photograph and you can edit it in Photoshop, or else you have taken a series of photographs. You have taken around 100 photographs of a function of a program, and you want to do some color correction, or you want to change the size of the all these photographs which you have taken, or you want to change some color scheme. All these things you can do it all together. You need not select each and every photograph. You can do it in a batch. So that is working with the batches. So it allows individual image editing as well as batches of photos. So this is about Photoshop. We will learn in detail later about Photoshop with the various tools and other techniques. The next important program or software is Adobe Illustrator. Adobe Illustrator is a vector drawing program. That means image editing is not possible here. You can use it for creating some artwork. you are a good artist, so you want to create some realistic artwork, or you want to create a logo, or you want to create some fabric design. So all these things can be done in Illustrator. It is often used to draw illustrations, cartoons, diagrams, charts, and logos, just like infographics. Unlike bitmap images that stores information in a grid of dots, Illustrator uses mathematical equations to draw out the shapes. This is the major difference between Photoshop and Illustrator. As I told, Photoshop is an image editor. So when you zoom a picture, you can see all the pixels. So these pixels are the smallest units in an image. So when you zoom it, you can see all these squares. So every square will have a unique color, whereas when you come to Illustrator, it's a vector program. That means the shapes which you create are made up of some dots, that is, those are made with the mathematical equations. So when you scale these without losing the quality of the shape, you can resize it. So that is the major difference between a Photoshop and Illustrator. Next is CorelDRAW. So this is developed by Corel Corporation. CorelDRAW is again a vector program, but you can use it for a variety of purpose. For example, you are designing a book of 100 pages, so you can create all the 100 pages in one file, just like in Excel spreadsheet, how you create in one Excel file and hundreds of spreadsheets. So same way, one CorelDRAW file, and you can add hundreds of pages, and you can set the similar fonts to all the paragraph, all the side headings, all these things you can design in CorelDRAW. So CorelDRAW is basically a edits two-dimensional images such as logos and posters. 3D drawing is not possible here. Similar to CorelDRAW, there is one more popular application from Adobe, that is Adobe InDesign. So InDesign is a desktop publishing software application for creating flyers, brochures, magazines, newspapers, and books. Projects created using InDesign can be shared in both digital and print formats. That means you can take a printout of your design, or else you can publish it over digital media, like you can share it as a PDF, or you can share it as a link to anyone who gets the link. All these things are possible, and InDesign is used by graphic designers, artists, publishers, and marketing professionals. So this is about InDesign. Next is the open source applications, that is GIMP. So GIMP is a cross-platform image editor available for GNU, Linux operating system, and Windows, and many more other operating systems as well. It is absolutely a free software, and even if you are a developer or you want to contribute something to the software, you can develop your code and you can contribute and you can publish it to the other users. So GIMP provides you with sophisticated tools to get your job done. That means if you are a graphic designer and you are using it for your personal purpose, then GIMP is a better tool. Compared to Photoshop, GIMP has almost all the tools, and the only thing which I feel is, compared to Photoshop, GIMP is not that much user friendly. Most of the Adobe applications are user friendly. Once you learn any one of the Adobe application, then you will find it easy to learn the other one, whereas GIMP, the shortcuts and the tools are somewhat different, so you may take some time to learn GIMP, but still it's a good option for freelancers because they need not pay anything, and it offers almost all the features, and even you can download some third-party plugins and you can improve your work. Next is Krita. So Krita is again a free and open source raster graphic editor designed primarily for digital painting and animation purpose. That means in Krita you can draw some good illustrations which can be used for animation and some other purpose it can be used. So it offers most of the other features like masking is possible, and low poly art or digital art, all these things can be done in Krita. So it can be downloaded from their official site as well. Next one is Inkscape. So Inkscape is a free and open source vector graphic editor for GNU and Linux, Windows or Mac operating systems. It offers a rich set of features and is widely used for both artistic and technical illustrations such as cartoons, clip arts, logos, typography, and so on. So it uses vector graphics to allow for sharp printouts and rendering as unlimited resolution, and is not bound to a fixed number of pixels like raster graphics. Inkscape uses the standardized SVG file format as its main format, which is supported by many other applications including web browsers. So this SVG format, so SVG format is a vector format, and this format, if you save your work in SVG format, you can import this work to Illustrator or CorelDRAW or any other designing program, and you can edit it there. So that is the advantage of SVG file formats. We will learn more about the various other file formats later.